Good morning. Good morning. Good morning, family. Welcome to the thru Community 12 Steps to Freedom Workshop. We'll be taking the 12 steps in 4 hours. We'll be sitting down, getting an introduction and an understanding of the 12 steps together here today. This workshop was written by John A. of West Palm Beach, Florida, with outlines from the book Back to Basics, written by Wally P. So, if you can't explain it simply, you don't understand it well enough. That is a quote by Albert Einstein. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 12 Steps to Freedom Workshop. We'll be going through the 12 steps in just 4 hours. Let's start with a moment of silence to reflect on what we're about to do here today, followed by the serenity prayer. God, grant us the serenity to accept the things we cannot change, the courage to change the things we can, and the wisdom to know the difference. See, you could be any place right now, but instead, you're here with us. And we're happy to have you here, making this investment in your sobriety. You're making a huge deposit in your IRA, your individual recovery account, by being here and participating. Please keep making these deposits, no matter how small, because one day you may have a situation that will require you to make a huge withdrawal, and you do not want your IRA to be depleted. We'll take a 10-minute break at around 12 Eastern time so that we can try and get this thing done by 2 p.m. We will be mostly using the big book and the 12 and 12 to go through the 12 steps. And we will be sharing our experience, strength, and hope with you on the 12 steps to help us all get a better understanding of the steps and how to apply them in our lives. See, page 15 of the 12 and 12 states, AA's 12 steps are a group of principles, spiritual in nature, which, if practiced as a way of life, can expel the obsession to drink and enable the sufferer to become happily, usefully whole. Some of you might be thinking that it's impossible to go through the 12 steps in just 4 hours. It's not impossible. In fact, that's how they did it in the early days of AA. If you go to the big book, page 263, it tells you, it was Dr. Bob's afternoon off, and he had me to his office, and we spent 3
What happened?
Cousin, you there?
Got lost.
I think he froze. Let's see.
Let's pick up until he comes back on. Big book, page 263. It was Dr. Bob's afternoon off. He had me to the office, and we spent 3 or 4 hours formally going through the 6-step program as it was at the time. The 6 steps were: 1, complete defeation; 2, dependence on guidance from a higher power; 3, moral inventory; 4, confession; 5, restitution; 6, continued work with other alcoholics. Dr. Bob led me through all these steps at the moral inventory. He brought up several of my bad personality traits of character defects, such as selfishness, conceit, jealousy, carelessness, intolerance, ill temper, sarcasm, and resentment. We went over these at a great length, and then he finished asking me if I wanted these defects of character removed. When I said yes, we both knelt on his desk and prayed, each of us asking for these defects taken away. There were only 6 steps at the time. Bill explained them into the 12 steps when he wrote the big book, but these 6 steps still encompass all of the principles of the current 12 steps. The prospect couldn't attend the AA meetings until he had taken these steps. He didn't even know where the meetings were being held at the time until someone sponsored him in the AA meetings. I am not going to say that AA was more effective than as opposed. I'm very nervous. Let's see, AA was more effective than as opposed to no.
Sandy, do you want me to do it?
Yes, ma'am, please.
No problem. AA was more effective than as opposed to now, but I will say that people are dying needlessly because they are procrastinating in taking the 12 steps. Even if they are not dying, they are suffering longer than they need to. How soon do you want to be happy, joyous, and free? If your house was on fire, you would have a sense of urgency to get that fire out. If you had a life-threatening disease, you would have a sense of urgency in getting on the path to recovery. Freedom from the obsession of alcohol comes in taking the 12 steps. Your life is in danger. Have a sense of urgency in having the 12 steps become a way of life sooner than later. That feeling of being happy, joyous, and free comes from taking the 12 steps. The steps help us work on the underlying issues behind alcoholism. If alcohol was a problem, most of us would be cured by now. Alcohol was but a symptom. Do you want to know how to get in a position of neutrality and get a great defense against that first sucker drink? It is through the 12 steps of AA. Quitting drinking is easy as pie. Anyone can quit drinking. Everyone in here quit drinking at some point in time prior to coming into AA. The problem is staying stopped. That's where AA and the 12 steps comes into play. If alcohol was the problem, treatment centers would have a 99.9% success rate. You could go to jail for a weekend and stop drinking. Again, everyone in here has stopped drinking even before coming into AA, but they couldn't stay stopped. Even if it was for 1 hour, half a day, or perhaps a week, you had stopped, but didn't know how to stay stopped. In AA, we are able to stay stopped one day at a time. By taking the 12 steps and practicing the principles behind the steps, we become someone who no longer needs to drink. The key to staying stopped is to not pick up the first drink. We are all one drink away from a drunk. The goal for today is to get you 12 plus steps away from that first sucker drink. If you stay for the whole workshop, you'll have taken all the steps except steps 4, 5, 8, and 9. You will get a cursory knowledge of those steps, but you will need to get someone to help you with those steps. You can be on step 9 within a few days. I'd like everyone to stand up with their big book in their hand. So please stand. And now drop your big book. And pick it up.
No,
Please remain.
Actually, Nicole, go ahead
Yes.
and drop your big books again. Drop your big
And
books.
John will do it properly now.
No, Nicole, you got it. No, just okay. Go ahead, Nicole. Just leave it and keep reading.
Okay, please remain standing till we finish reading the following paragraph. There is a big book, page 25. There is a solution. Almost none of us like the self-searching, the leveling of our pride, the confession of shortcomings, which the process requires for its successful consumption. But we saw that it really worked in others. And we had come to believe in the hopelessness and futility of life as we had been living it. When therefore we were approached by those in whom the problem had been solved, there was nothing left for us but to pick up the simple kit of spiritual tools laid at our feet. We have found much of the heaven, and we have been rocketed into a fourth dimension of existence, of which we had not even dreamed. Please pick up your big book, which contains the simple kit of spiritual tools laid at our feet, and sit down. And thank you, John. Before going any further, I have a question I'd like each person here to answer. Are you willing to go to any lengths to get sober and stay sober? Yes or no?
Yes.
Let's open the chat. You can put it in the chat also if you want. I got the chat.
Okay.
Okay, chat is open.
Yes.
So again, are you willing to go to any lengths to get sober and stay sober? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes.
And do you want to be happy, joyous, and free? Yes or no?
Yes.
Come on, guys, shout it out. Shout it out. Show some emotion.
Yes.
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 Hell
Absolutely.
yeah. Hell
Yeah,
yeah.
there we go.
The
Yes.
answer should be hell yeah. The hell yeah.
Yeah,
Hell
hell yeah.
Hell
Oh,
yeah.
I'm sorry.
Hell
I'm sorry,
yeah.
heck yeah. Some of you might want to say heck yeah.
Heck yeah. If you have decided you want what we have and are willing to go to any length to get it, then you are ready to take certain steps. Step 1. Cindy, do you want me to read step 1?
Yes, please. Go ahead.
Step 1, we admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. Big Book, page 24. The fact is that most alcoholics, for reasons yet obscure, have lost the power of choice in drink. Our so-called willpower becomes practically non-existent. We're unable at certain times to bring into our consciousness with sufficient force the memory of the suffering and humiliation of even a week or a month ago. We are without defense against the first drink. Split this step into 2 parts. Look at step 1 as 1, admitting that you are powerless over alcohol, and 2, that your life has become unmanageable. Focus on the first part until you are comfortable in saying that you are powerless over alcohol, and believe it when you say it. Then take the time to look at your life and experience with an aerial view so that you can see the big picture of how unmanageable it was. There is absolutely no action taken on steps 1, 2, or 3. There is nothing to write until you get to step 4. You may choose to do some writing if you want, or if you have sponsors suggest that you do. There are even worksheets on the internet for steps 1, 2, and 3. We learned that we had fully conceded to an innermost selves that we were alcoholics. This is the first step in recovery, Big Book, page 30. We perceive that only through utter defeat are we able to take our first steps towards liberation and strength. Our admissions of personal powerlessness finally turn out to be a firm bedrock upon which happy and purposeful lives may be built. 12 and 12, page 21. The doctor's opinion will show you how you were powerless over alcohol and also why you drank if you're an alcoholic. Men and women drink essentially because they like the effect produced by alcohol. The sensation is so elusive that while they admit it is injurious, they cannot, after a time, differentiate the true from the false. To them, their alcoholic life seems the only normal one. They are restless, irritable, and discontented unless they can again experience a sense of ease and comfort, which comes at once by taking a few drinks. Drinks which they see others taking with impunity. After they have succumbed to the desire again, as so many do, and the phenomenon of craving develops, they pass through the well-known stages of a spree, emerging remorseful with a firm resolution not to drink again. This is repeated over and over, and unless this person can experience an entire psychic change, there is very little hope of his recovery. You don't crave alcohol until you've had that first drink. Prior to that, it's an obsession of the mind. So what are some of the myths about this step? Powerlessness means you're weak. Admitting powerlessness is a crucial step on the pathway to independence and strength. It requires honesty and courage to accept that alcohol and/or drugs have taken over your life. You have to hit rock bottom before you're able to find support. It doesn't require a major life event to open your eyes to your alcoholism or developing alcoholism. Sometimes all it requires is a realization that alcohol is causing you more pain than the pain you aim to escape from. Even if you are a high-ranking member of the Not Yet Club and had not yet been arrested, gotten a DUI, lost a job, lost my family, etc., your life could still be unmanageable. You do not have to ride the elevator to the bottom. You can get off at any floor. You hit bottom when you stop digging. So if you got reservations about being an alcoholic, think about the various ways your life was unmanageable. experiencing health problems like high blood pressure, insomnia, or ulcers, having feelings of guilt, despair, hopelessness, depression, anxiety, self-hate, or thoughts of suicide, having poor performance at work or school leading to loss of employment or poor grades, losing parental rights, getting a divorce, or having a serious relational problems with friends and family, experiencing legal issues, financial problems, incarceration. Have I compared my alcoholism with other people's? And what does unmanageability mean to me? What troubles have been caused because of my addiction to alcohol? Have I used alcohol or drugs to change or suppress my feelings? Are you in denial? What reservations am I still holding on to? Do I accept that I'll never regain control or drinking even after a long period without use? What could my life be like if I surrendered completely? Am I willing to follow directions, go to meetings regularly, and give recovery my best effort? Have I made peace with the fact that I am an alcoholic and that I'll have to do these things to stay sober? Is AA for you? 12 questions only you can answer. In boxing, a fighter loses when his corner throws in the towel and quits. In AA, we win when we throw in the towel and quit or surrender. Prior to AA and the 12 steps, we are totally powerless over the first sucker drink. And once we took that first drink, we were powerless to stop until we got that buzz. Doesn't matter how long you drank or how much you drank. We thought alcohol was the solution before we came into AA. Alcohol was a temporary solution. Through Alcoholics Anonymous, you can find a permanent solution and a true higher power. Before coming into AA and taking the 12 steps, we were totally powerless over that first sucker drink. And once we look at that first drink, we were powerless to stop until we got that buzz. For many alcoholics, alcohol was their higher power. But in Alcoholics Anonymous, we found a permanent solution and a true higher power to help us face reality. Many people take steps 1 and 2 prior to joining AA. Why would they go to a meeting or continue going to AA meetings if they didn't think they were powerless over alcohol and their lives were somewhat unmanageable? Alcoholics would not continue coming to AA if they didn't feel AA could help restore their sanity or do something for them. Why continue to fight and get overrun by sheer force when you can negotiate a conditional surrender? Unfortunately, when we come to AA, we do not have the luxury of negotiating any type of conditional surrender. Our surrender must be an unconditional one, without any reservations whatsoever. Nobody surrenders to die. You surrender to live again. Sad to say that we do not reach that mindset until we are thoroughly defeated. Then and only then do we allow a power greater than ourselves to come in and help us rebuild and perhaps emerge better than before. Each person's story is uniquely their own. It's best not to compare your story to anyone else's. Don't compare, relate, identify. You don't have to go back out to create a sexier and more exciting story because you think yours is too boring. Being committed to your sobriety and not just involved. Become committed to your sobriety and not just involved. Once the obsession has been relieved, we are no longer powerless over alcohol. I can't give you a time frame but through taking the steps, you will be placed in a position of neutrality, safe and protected. You will no longer be powerless over people, places, and things, nor powerful over alcohol. Notice that the steps reads, we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. However you interpret the 12 steps is up to you and perhaps you and your sponsor. Are you ready to concede to your innermost self that you are an alcoholic? Yes or no? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes. Oh, yes.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Heck yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Everybody can unmute.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I am an alcoholic.
Do you have any reservations whatsoever about being an alcoholic? Yes or no?
No.
Not at all.
Oh, no.
No.
Hell no.
I
Well,
mess it up every time. I mess it up every
Nope.
time.
And nope.
heck no.
If you have conceded that you're an alcoholic and have no reservations about being an alcoholic, then you have just taken step one.
That's what's up. That's what's up.
Amen.
First step being
Yay!
obvious.
Okay.
I lost and I
So
will never win again. I lost and I will never win again.
All right.
Okay.
Step 2. My name is Patrice. I'm a grateful recovered alcoholic. Step 2, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. Some members of AA will immediately bring up God when the subject of step 2 comes up. Step 2 isn't about believing or not believing in a God. We don't have to immediately start talking about God when this step comes up. The newcomer can be spoon-fed the God talk. Step 2 talks about coming to believe in a power greater than yourself. That power can be anything you choose. On page 12 and 12, in the 12 and 12 on page 26, it states, first, Alcoholics Anonymous does not demand that you believe anything. All of its 12 steps are but suggestions. Second, to get sober and to stay sober, you don't have to swallow all of step 2 right now. Looking back, I find that I took it piecemeal myself. Third, all you really need is a truly open mind. Just resign from the debating society and quit bothering yourself with such deep questions as whether it was the hen or the egg that came first. Again, I say all you need is the open mind. There is nothing to write in steps 1, 2, or 3. It's up to you if you want to do some writing with these 3 steps, but the big book doesn't mention writing until we get to step 4. The actions start with step 4. On Big Book page 46, it states, we found that as soon as we were able to lay aside prejudice and express even a willingness to believe in a power greater than ourselves, we commenced to get results, even though it was impossible for any of us to fully define or comprehend that power, which is God. On Big Book page 46, it states, much to our relief, we discovered we did not have to consider another's conception of God. Our own conception, however inadequate, was sufficient to make the approach and to effect the contact with him. As soon as we admitted the possible existence of a creative intelligence, a spirit of the universe, underlying the totality of things, we began to be possessed of a new sense of power and direction, provided we took other simple steps. We found that God does not make too hard terms with those who seek him. On Big Book page 47, it states, when therefore we speak to you of God, we mean your own conception of God. This applies to other spiritual expressions which you find in this book. Do not let any prejudice you may have against spiritual terms deter you from honestly asking yourself what they mean to you. On Big Book page 45, lack of power. That was our dilemma. We had to find a power which we could live, and it had to be a power greater than ourselves. On Big Book page 55, deep down in every man, woman, and child is the fundamental idea of God. It may be obscured. In Big Book page 55, it says, deep down in every man, woman, and child is the fundamental idea of God. It may be obscured by calamity, by pomp, by worship of other things, but in some form or other, it is there. For faith in a power greater than ourselves and miraculous demonstrations of that power in human lives are facts as old as man himself. And on Big Book page 47, we needed to ask ourselves but one short question. Do I now believe, or am I even willing to believe that there is a power greater than myself? As soon as a man can say that he does believe or is willing to believe, we emphatically assure him that he is on his way. It has been repeatedly proven among us that upon this simple cornerstone, a wonderfully effective spiritual structure can be built. Most people come into AA on the 3rd step. Please don't waste time overthinking this way of living. You can surrender to alcoholism and die drinking, Or you can surrender to your higher power in AA and be happy, joyous, and free. Lack of power was our dilemma, but we can tap into a power greater than ourselves that will remove the obsession to drink and give us a design for living. Now, do you believe, or are you even willing to believe, that there is a power greater than yourself? That power can be anything at all. Yes or no?
Of course.
Yes.
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 If you
Absolutely.
have answered yes to the question, then you have just taken step 2.
I didn't hear everybody say
Yeah, that's
yes.
what's up.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Hell yes.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Right.
Okay, step 3. Made a
Yes.
decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood him. Our description of the alcoholic, the chapter to the agnostic, and our personal adventures before and after make clear 3 pertinent ideas. A, that we were alcoholic and could not manage our own lives. B, that probably no human power could have relieved our alcoholism. And C, that God could and would if he were sought. The ABCs of the AA program sum up steps 1 and 2. Step 1, if you are convinced that you're an alcoholic and that your life was unmanageable without any reservations. Step 2, if you are convinced that a power greater than yourself can help you. There is nothing to write in steps 1, 2, or 3. It's up to you if you want to do some writing with these 3 steps, but the big book doesn't mention writing until we get to step 4. The action starts with step 4. Big book, page 60. Being convinced, we were at step 3, which is that we decided to turn our will and our life over to God as we understood him. Just what do we mean by that? And just what do we do? Big book, page 60. The first requirement is that we be convinced that our life run on self-will can hardly be a success. On that basis, we are almost always in collision with something or somebody, even though our motives are good. Most people try to live by self-propulsion. Each person is like an actor who wants to run the whole show, is forever trying to arrange the lights, the ballet, the scenery, and the rest of the players in his own way. 12 and 12, page 34. Practicing step 3 is like the opening of a door, which to all appearances is still closed and locked. All we need is a key and the decision to swing the door open. There's only one key, and it is called willingness. Once unlocked by willingness, the door opens almost of itself. And looking through it, we shall see a pathway beside which is an inscription. It reads, "This is a way to a faith that works." In the first 2 steps, we were engaged in reflection. We saw that we were powerless over alcohol, but we also perceived that faith of some kind, if only in AA itself, is possible to anyone. These conclusions did not require action. They required only acceptance. The key word in step 3 is decision. There is absolutely no action taken, nor is any type of action necessary for completion of step 3. The actions come in the subsequent steps. If 2 birds are on a power line and one of them decides to fly off, how many are left? You still have 2 left on the power line. After making the decision to turn our will, our thoughts and our lives, our actions, to the care of God, absolutely nothing happens until and unless it is followed by action. Steps 1, 2, and 3 pave the way for the willingness to come, to make the decision to turn our will and our lives over to the change our thoughts and actions. Steps 4 through 9 show us how to make the change happen, as well as removing the character defects that prevent us from doing it. Steps 10, 11, and 12 help us keep our will and our lives in his care. Another key word in step 3 is care. You're not turning your will and life over to God. You're turning them over to his care. We have free will to do whatever we want. The longer you are sober, you will find that the things you want to do have changed. The path will get narrower. You will do the right thing in life because you want to. You may not always know what the right thing to do is in a situation, but you always know what is the wrong thing to do. 12 and 12, page 34 and 35. Like all the remaining steps, step 3 calls for affirmative action. For it is only by action that we can cut away the self-will which has always blocked the entry to God, of God, or if you like, a higher power into our lives. Faith, to be sure, is necessary, but faith alone can avail nothing. We can have faith, yet keep God out of our lives. Therefore, our problem now becomes just how and by what specific means shall we be able to let him in? Step 3 represents our first attempt to do this. In fact, the effectiveness of the whole AA program will rest upon how well and earnestly we have tried to come to a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood him. Big Book, page 62. First of all, we had to quit playing God. It didn't work. Next, we decided that hereafter in this drama of life, God was going to be our director. He is the principal. We are his agents. He is the father, and we are his children. Most good ideas are simple, and this concept was the keystone of the new and triumphant arc through which we passed to freedom. Big Book, page 63. We were now at step 3. Many of us said to our Maker, as we understood him, God, I offer myself to thee, to build with me and do with me as thou wilt. Relieve me of the bondage of self, that I may better do thy will. Take away my difficulties, that victory over them may bear witness to those I would help of thy power, thy love, thy way of life. May I do thy will always. We thought well before taking the step, making sure we were ready, that we could at last abandon ourselves utterly to him. He called this the 3rd step prayer. Big Book, page 63. We found it very desirable to take this spiritual step with an understanding person, such as our wife, best friend, or spiritual advisor. But it is better to meet God alone than with one who might misunderstand. The wording was, of course, quite optional, so long as we expressed the idea, voicing it with reservation. This was only a beginning, though. If honestly and humbly made, an effect sometimes a very great one was felt at once. Don't let the God word stop you from taking this step. Your God or higher power can be whoever or whatever you want. You can customize your God to your specifications. Some AA members say they do steps 1, 2, and 3 every day. Some say they surrender every day. Others say they'll only do steps 1, 2, and 3 once they are no longer in a state of surrender. Some members say they are still powerless even after years of sobriety. Others say they are no longer powerless. They are in a position of neutrality. Step 3 is about the God of our understanding. Do not get hung up on the God word. God can stand for a group of drunks, grow or die, greatest of daddies, or anything you want. You don't even have to use the God word. Just call it your higher power, HP. You can have your own conception of God and not that of your parents. You don't need to keep the God you grew up with. You can now customize your God just as you would customize a computer to your specifications. A will help you plug into the power of your God. The room you're in is full of power outlets, but if you don't plug in, you won't get the power. The 3rd step helps you find the power outlet and plug in. The rest of the steps clear the path to the power as well as staying plugged into the power source. Interdependence. You will get more independence by being dependent on your higher power, HP. For most people in this meeting, alcohol was their God, their higher power, HP. Alcohol was their crutch in life. Alcohol, however, was a temporary solution. You now have a long-term, permanent solution in AA and your higher power. You can lean on them for support and strength. In step 3, you will begin to see how your higher power was looking out over you your whole life. Don't see how your higher power was with you your whole life. Think about the times that you should have died. Think about the times you should have been arrested. Think about the times something horrible should have happened, but it didn't go as badly as it should have or could have. That was your higher power looking out for you. You will begin to see that everything happens in your life for a reason, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent. It's okay to have faith and fear simultaneously. Courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is having fear, but going forward anyway. You don't even have to believe in God. Again, your higher power can be anything you want. You can even be an atheist and still get sober and become happy, joyous, and free. The bottom line is that A works if you believe in God. It works if you don't believe in God. The only way it will not work is if you think you are God. Are you ready to turn your will and your life over to the care of the God of your understanding? Yes or no? Are you ready to do the right thing in your life from now on, one day at a time? Yes or no?
Yes.
So
Yes.
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 Yes. Yes.
Yay.
Yes.
Amazing. Amazing stuff. If you decided you want what we have and are willing to go to any length to get it, then you are ready to take certain steps. Big Book, page 58. If you have answered yes to the question, then you have just taken step 3.
That's what's
Are
up.
you,
That's what's up.
Yay! Awesome.
so are you
Let's take a
willing?
break. Let's take a break and see if anyone has any questions. We're not looking
Perfect.
for shares, just if you have any questions, because this is a workshop. Any questions on steps 1, 2, and 3 so far? Okay. If no questions, then let's move on.
Welcome to
Okay. Yes, good morning, family. I'm Jonathan, and I'm an alcoholic. Are you still willing to go to any length? If so, let's move on. Moving on to step 4. Step 4, made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. How soon should we start step 4 after we've done step 3? Let's see what the founding fathers of AA had to say about that topic. In the Big Book, page 63 and 64. Next, we launched out on a course of vigorous action, the first step of which is personal house cleaning, which many of us had never attempted. Though our decision was a vital and crucial step, it could have little permanent effect unless at once followed by strenuous effort to face and be rid of the things in ourselves which had been blocking us. Our liquor was but a symptom. So we had to get down the causes and conditions. This means you started step 4 immediately after doing step 3. Why do we need to do a step 4? You won't know what to fix if you don't know what's broken. You won't know what it is about you that needs to be changed. And you won't know your assets and liabilities and what they are if you don't take this inventory. In the Big Book, page 63 and 64. A business which takes no regular inventory usually goes broke. Taking commercial inventory is a fact-finding and fact-facing process. It is an effort to discover the truth about the trade in stock. One object is to dispose of damaged or unusable goods, to get rid of them promptly and without regret. If the owner of a business is to be successful, he cannot fool himself about value. We did exactly the same thing with our lives. We took stock honestly. First, we searched out the flaws in our makeup, which caused our failure. Being convinced that self manifested in various ways was what had defeated us, we considered that its common manifestations. Steps 4 and 5 will help you to uncover, discover, and discard troubling facts from the past. The past will no longer have power over you. You will learn your part in many situations from your past. The bottom line is to no longer be a victim of the incidents of the past. There is nothing wrong with seeking outside help if that is required. In the 12 and 12, page 42, it states, nearly every serious emotional problem can be seen as a case of misdirected instinct. When that happens, our great natural assets, the instincts that have turned into physical and mental liabilities. Step 4 is our vigorous and painstaking effort to discover what these liabilities in each of us have been and are. See, there is no right or wrong way to do a fourth step. Just do it. There is no right or wrong way to do a fourth step. Just do it. Don't waste precious time trying to do a perfect fourth step. See, there are various worksheets available to outline. See, the big book suggests that we write out the fourth step. You shouldn't type it out and email it to your sponsor. In the big book, page 64, it says, we sat down with pen and paper and we listed people and things. In the big book, page 65, on our grudge list, we set opposite each name or injury. Was it our self-esteem, our security, our ambition, our personal or sex relations, which had been interfered with? If you keep the fourth step simple, you can complete it in a few hours. You don't have to go back to kindergarten. You don't have to dig that deep to find your resentments. Put down the things that keep you up at night, or the stuff that you think about as soon as you wake up. See, it's not the things that you don't remember to write in your fourth step that may take you out. It's the things that you do remember, but don't write down. That may take us out. See, in the big book, page 65, it says, we went back through our lives. Nothing counted but thoroughness and honesty. You'll never be done with these steps. If you forget anything in this or any other step, you can do it in a step 10. Remember, the fourth step is just the finding out and taking notes for when you take a fifth step. The fourth step is the beginning of the process to help us to have that profound personality change, which enables us to become someone who does not need to drink anymore. As I've stated, this is not an easy process to do. Who in the heck wants to peel away layers upon layers of negative, bad, terrible things about themselves? Nobody wants to do this, but we must. But we must if we are to change. The fourth step goes against every self-preservation fiber in our being. But again, we must do it if we are to change. We must, that is 3 musts, do it if we want to survive. If you trust the process, great things will happen. Clancy I, out of California, tells a great story of early aviation. There are 4 inventories that we should be writing as part of our fourth step: resentments, fears, sex, and harms done to others. I think it's a longer path you do the fourth step in the form. I think it's a longer path if you do the fourth step in the form of a story. The fourth step should mainly be notes and short phrases that will help you when you do your fifth step. However, there is no right or wrong way to do a fourth step. Just do it. Do you know how long it takes some people to do a fourth step? 5 months worrying and thinking about it, and then a half a day just to do it. Resentments is the first list. List any thoughts, experiences, memories, ideas, beliefs, or observations from your entire life that currently cause you negative emotion or mental experiences. This does not necessarily include negative mental or emotional impulses that cause you to drink, but the thoughts you harbor cause detrimental emotional and mental experiences from the past to the present. Usually resentments are orientated towards a person, object, or place or thing. And this, in this sense, Having a specific list and a pen and paper is essential. Having a specific list and pen and paper are essential for listing these items. Don't forget. I got lost. I'm going to catch up though. You have to excuse me. My page just flipped. I apologize. Almost there. Want to survive.
Don't forget that thought.
Okay.
I can read some, John, if you want me to.
Yeah, pick up where I left off at.
Okay. Don't forget that part of this process includes taking an honest look at resentments towards yourself, as well as resentments or reservations that you may have about things relevant to the program, such as the program itself or a higher power. 2, fears. Listing your fears may feel like an endless task. However, you may be amazed at how they seem to dissipate the moment you jot them down. Of course, there are some fears that are not as easily removed or even identifiable, but that is why you have a sponsor to help you in the process. Some helpful thoughts when considering your fears include asking yourself, what do I fear today? Then move forward and backwards and ask yourself, what do I fear from the past? And what do I fear about the future? Number 3, sexual conduct / harm done to others. Depending on your temperament, this section can prove somewhat unnerving. However, experience has shown that sexual conduct is intimately linked to our views of ourselves and our views of others. In this sense, a thorough exploration of our sexual conduct in the past, especially as it relates to exposing character flaws or blemishes in us, is essential. Many program members suffer from long-standing and repressed resentments, shame, and insecurity due to prior sexual experiences, which lingers for years below the surface. The 4th step is all about bringing these lingering fears, worries, shames, and elements of anger to the surface for an honest examination. The goal of ridding ourselves of these harmful pieces of our emotional and mental lives makes this process very worthwhile indeed. The biggest challenge for those engaging in the first 4th step is relinquishing the notion of righteous anger, justifications for their harmful actions, or rationalizations that minimize the harms caused. What we desire above all is honesty, thoroughness, and a completely critical look at ourselves, which refuses to excuse the harms that we may have caused to others, to ourselves or others. The 4th step is the beginning of the healing process. This is also where we start working on the underlying conditions behind our alcoholism. After a while, the past will not have the power over you that it did previously. You will start feeling happy, joyous, and free. Freedom from the past. You will start forgiving yourself and others. You will start seeing things as they really are and not how you perceive them. Big Book, page 70. Suppose we fall short of the chosen ideal and stumble. Does this mean we're going to go get drunk? Some people tell us so, but this is only half truth. It depends on us and on our motives. If we are sorry for what we have done and have the honest desire to let God take us to better things, we believe we will be forgiven and will have learned our lesson. If we are not sorry and our conduct continues to harm others, we are quite sure to drink. We are not theorizing. These are facts out of our experience. We are going to look at a short list of character defects and ask you if you identify with any or all of them. Resentment, anger, fear, cowardice, self-pity, self-justification, self-importance, egotism, self-condemnation, guilt, lying, evasiveness, dishonesty, impatience, hate, false pride, phoniness, denial, jealousy, envy, laziness, procrastination, insecurity, negative thinking, immoral thinking, perfectionism, intolerance, criticizing, loose talk, gossip, greed. These character defects boil down to selfishness, self-centeredness, dishonesty, and fear that cause resentments. We all know that resentments are our number one offender and kill more alcoholics than anything else. There is no
Thank
right.
you so much.
You're welcome.
Now we're going to stop right there for 1 second. That was great. I just would like to go back. Could you unmute everyone? And as we go through these questions, I'd like to see what we can get on the test. So I'm going to unmute you and you answer yes or no to these things. Do you have resentments?
Yes.
Anger?
Yes.
Yes.
Sometimes
Yes.
extra cowardice?
Yes.
Yes, I do.
Do you have
Yes.
self-pity?
Yes,
I do.
Yes.
Justification?
Yes.
I do.
Do you think that you're overly important? Do you condemn yourself?
Of
Yes.
course.
Yes.
Yes.
I'm not perfect.
Do you lie? Are you evasive?
Doing
Indulgent
now.
fear?
Yes.
Are you impatient? And do you
Yes.
hate something?
Yes.
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 Sometimes do you
Definitely.
lose pride? Have you been phony?
Of
Yes.
course.
I like those
Yes.
shoes.
Yes.
So you notice they're ugly. You tell somebody, hey, I love those shoes. Do you still go into denial?
Yes.
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 Are you sometimes
Yes.
bitter
Yes.
and
Yes.
envy?
The truth hurts.
Envious? Are you lazy and procrastinate on things you know you should do?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Heck yeah.
Insincere,
Yes.
But
Hell yeah.
often
Hell
exhibiting
yeah.
negative thinking or immoral thinking, but at the same time, you want everything perfect around
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
you.
Yeah.
Are you
You
Yes.
talk about me,
intolerant?
Jane.
Yes, indeed.
Do you criticize and use loose talk and sometimes even gossip? Ugh.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Or
I
greedy
find
and think that
myself
you
in.
deserve things and think that you
Yes.
deserve things that you know you're not entitled to. Well, these character defects all boil down to, let's say this all together, selfishness. Repeat after me.
Selfishness.
Selfishness,
Selfishness.
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 self-centeredness,
Selfishness.
self-centeredness,
Self-centeredness.
self-centeredness,
Selfishness.
dishonesty, and fear.
Dishonesty.
Dishonesty and fear.
Here.
And you can find all of these things connected to resentments. And we all know that resentments are our number one offender. We kill more alcohol than anything else.
Yes.
Wow. I love this part of it. I love this part of the workshop. I really do. This is like really learn something. Okay. So there is no right or wrong way to do a fourth step. Just get on down and do it. Let's move on to step 5. Who's doing step 5?
Can I ask one question,
I'm
cousin?
having a ball.
Cousin, can I ask one
Yes,
question?
go ahead.
How long does it
Yes,
take?
go ahead.
The question is, how long does it take a person to do step 4?
There is no specific time. You can do a fourth step in an afternoon.
It's no certain time. But the quicker the better.
The quicker the better. See, because matter of fact, you know what? And me and John were talking about this during the week. This week, we're gonna have a pop-up. What
are you doing, honey?
We're gonna look in the big book, and we're gonna find out how to do a step 4 out of the big book. We're gonna do that this week. We're gonna set some time aside, probably between 1:30 and 2:30 this week. We will announce it, while everything is fresh, and we're just gonna show you how simple a 4th step can be in the big book.
Thank you.
So look out for that. Look out for that. We'll set that up over the next day or so, and I'll start announcing it at the meeting. And between 1:30 and 2:30, probably twice this week. We're just going to concentrate on step 4, and all we're going to do is read what the big book tells us to do. Answer all the questions. Read exactly. It's a set of instructions on how to do it. Right in the big book, in the chapter, how it works. Yep. So that's that.
Cousin, you have
And don't
two
forget,
questions.
we're not doing a perfect. Yeah, go ahead.
Cousin, you have 2 hands up. Joe.
All right, well, unmute them and let them ask questions if they have questions.
Joe's unmuted, but we can hear him.
Fascinating.
We didn't hear you, Joe. Okay, who else?
Joe, we can't hear you, buddy. You're talking, but it's not coming through.
Okay, so like I said,
Hello?
we're going to set
There
aside.
we go.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, I'm sorry. I am just finishing up my 4th step just to give Nellie a little, took me about 8 hours writing pen to paper with everything. I did it in about 4 days. I had 4 different times, sit down for a couple hours. When it was all said and done, about a day's worth of work. So, and I thought I did a good job. My sponsor thought I did a good job. So that's kind of answer that question on how long that's what it took me, but just an idea.
Thank
you so much, Joe, for coming in. That's very encouraging. You got right down to it and got down to business. Yeah. And did it in a few hours each day, and it took a few days, 2 hours each day. That's right. Anyone else? Another question? Veli, you have a question.
Yes, I do. I'm Veli, and I'm alcoholic. In the listing that we have here, you're talking about immoral thinking and loose talk. What are some examples of immoral thinking?
An example of immoral thinking is if I know, it's not immoral until I know better. So if I know that I should be thinking something else, that's immoral.
Okay, so it's not, you're not basing it on a religious thought. You're basing it on a right and wrong thought.
What I know. You have to base immorality on what I know. See, because other than that, it's just ignorance. But if I know better and I'm still thinking that way and I'm not changing my thoughts, that's immoral thinking.
Okay. And then the loose talk is just gossip, right?
That's obvious. That's obvious. Saying things that we shouldn't say. Not using our filter. Not using a filter when we talk.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, I'm looking forward to seeing you at that 4th step when we sit down and read how to do the 4th step, because I know you're very interested in it. Great. John, go ahead.
All right. Yeah. All right, everybody. John, alcoholic. So, answer to the 2 questions. Morality. Morality is an individual thing. What's moral to you may be immoral to someone else. What's immoral to you may not be a problem for anyone else. So don't overthink it. Don't overthink it. If in your heart what's good and bad and what's right and wrong. Do what's right and wrong and do what's good and bad in your estimation. What you think is good and bad, what you think is right or wrong. And because this way of life, for you to live it, you're going to have to live it your way. Do the right thing as you see it. And also, how long does it take to do a 4th step? Here's how they used to do it. Even when AA first started. Well, I'm sorry, even after the big book was written. Somebody would leave out of New York or Akron or Cleveland. A businessman would leave out of there on a train. You know, they had, let's say they're moving from, they're traveling from New York to Florida. They would arrange to meet with 2, 3, or however many people along the way. Maybe meet with one person in North Carolina, meet somebody else in Virginia, meet somebody else in Tallahassee, Florida, meet somebody else, along the way. And just wherever there was a layover, and if the layover was an hour, they would meet up with them for that hour, take them through the steps in that hour, and then move on and meet up with the next person. And if the big book had been published by then, they'd leave them a big book, and they would start a group, and they would start helping other people. So don't waste time. And this is no bullshit. You can look it up also on page 263. But do it after the workshop, page 263. It'll tell you how soon they should go through these steps in just a few hours. So don't waste time. It's up to you. How soon do you want to be happy, joyous, and free? You can recover quickly in AA. People waste too much time overthinking it. Don't overthink it. That's it.
Thank you.
Okay, now we're going to move on to step 5. Who's doing step 5? Come on in.
Shiva said. Oh, Cassandra. Yes. Is Cassandra here?
Let's go call somebody else.
I can read.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Joe, what was that?
I said I can do it next.
Okay.
We have a list. It's just that if someone's not here, that would be great if anyone can help out. Joe, go ahead if you're going to do. You're doing step 5.
I sure can.
Yes, thank you.
You have our script, right? You have our script in front of you.
Yes, sir. I have it up.
Perfect.
There you go.
Joe.
Thank you so much. Go ahead.
You're welcome. I'm Joe. I'm an alcoholic, and this is step 5. Admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. Big book, page 72. Having made our personal inventory, what shall we do about it? We have been trying to get a new attitude, a new relationship with our Creator, and to discover the obstacles in our path. We have admitted certain defects, ascertained in a rough way what the trouble is. We have put our finger on the weak items in our personal inventory. Now these are about to be cast out. This requires action on our part, which, when completed, will mean that we have admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our defects. This brings us to the 5th step. This brings us to the 5th step in the program of recovery mentioned in the preceding chapter. Why is it so important to do a 5th step with someone else? Well, you decide for yourself. Big book, page 72. If we skip this vital step, we may not overcome drinking. Time after time, newcomers have tried to keep to themselves certain facts about their lives. Trying to avoid this humbling experience, they have turned to easier methods. Almost invariably, they got drunk. Having persevered with the rest of the program, they wonder why they fell. We think the reason is they never completed their house cleaning. They took inventory all right, but hung on to some of the worst items in stock. They only thought they had lost their egoism and fear. They only thought they had humbled themselves, but they had not learned enough of humility, fearlessness, and honesty in the sense we find it necessary until they told someone else their life story. We are as sick as our deepest, darkest secrets. Make your life an open book. The AA steps are fashioned in such a manner as to bring about a profound personality change, which will lead to the drink problem being removed from us. Alcohol was not the problem, never was the problem. Once alcohol has been removed from the equation, we must deal with the real problem. ourselves and our character defects. To become a person who no longer needs to drink, the fourth step was the beginning of the process to allow us to change. The fifth and subsequent steps continue helping with the changing process. Why does the fifth step work? It is something new that AA and Bill Wilson stumbled upon? Not really. The concept of the fifth step has been in use for centuries. Confession of our sins is something that many religions employ. It's probably true that women live longer than men because of kitchen table psychology. Many women will tell another one everything that goes on in her life and will seek counsel from her friend or friends at different times. This is the same method that AA uses to help us make our lives an open book. Some benefits of doing a fifth step: not unique, not alone, freedom from the past, freedom from the fear of being found out, forgiveness of self and others. We begin to see things as they are and not as we perceive them. We gain peace of mind and serenity and true humility. Big Book, page 75. We pocket our pride and go to it, illuminating every twist of character, every dark cranny of the past. Once we have taken this step, withholding nothing, we are delighted. We can look the world in the eye. We can be alone at perfect peace and at ease. Our fears fall from us. We begin to feel the nearness of our Creator. We may have had certain spiritual beliefs, but now we begin to have a spiritual experience. The feeling that the drink problem has disappeared will often come strongly. We feel that we're on a broad highway, walking hand in hand with the spirit of the universe. A word of caution: be careful with whom you do your fifth step, because there is no legal privilege, implied or otherwise, unless you do it with a lawyer or a priest. Even then, there are certain crimes that a person is obligated to report if you tell them. However, the AA program is all about growing up and accepting responsibilities for our actions. In the words of Dr. Bob, trust God, clean house, help others. 12 by 12, pages 60 and 61. Our next problem will be to discover the person in whom we are to confide. Here we ought to take much care, remembering that prudence is a virtue which carries a high rating. Perhaps we shall need to share with this person facts about ourselves which no others ought to know. We shall want to speak with someone who is experienced, who not only has stayed dry, but has been able to surmount other serious difficulties. Big Book 74. Rightly and naturally, we think well before we choose the person or persons with whom to take this intimate and confidential step. Those of us belonging to a religious denomination which requires confession must, and of course, will want to go to the properly appointed authority whose duty it is to receive it. Excuse me. Though we have no religious connection, we may still do well to talk with somebody ordained by an established religion. We often find such person quick to see and understand our problem. Of course, we sometimes encounter people who do not understand alcoholics. If we cannot or would rather not do this, we search our acquaintance for a closed-mouth, understanding friend. Perhaps our doctor or psychologist will be that person. We may be one of our own. It may be one of our own family. We cannot disclose anything to our wives or our parents which will hurt them and make them unhappy. We have no right to save our own skin at another person's expense. Step 5 questions. Should I do my fifth step? It doesn't. How should I do my fifth step? It doesn't matter. In person, Zoom, or phone. If I relapse on step 4 or 5, on what step should I start again? Start on that same step, but go back to step 1 if you're having any reservations. How long should I wait to do step 5 upon completion of the 4th step? You can start the same day. I'm ready to do step 4 and get on with the rest of the steps. So my sponsor wants me to wait. What should I do? Get another sponsor. Doesn't matter who I choose to do my 5th step with. Try to find someone you trust. You can do it with anyone, such as your sponsor, priest, or therapist. How long should a 5th step last? It lasts as long as it takes. Doesn't matter. What is my part if I'm the victim of abuse as a child? You are 100% innocent and totally the victim. Your part is not to have a victim mentality. Don't let it have power over you anymore. Get outside help if needed and start helping others. Should men listen to a woman's 5th step or vice versa? Doesn't matter. It's just a suggestion. How often should I do a 4th and 5th step? Totally up to you. Let's move on to step 6.
All right. My name is Patrice, and I'm a grateful recovered alcoholic. Step 6, we're entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. In the 12 and 12, page 46, it states, we don't just focus on the bad character traits because there is some good and bad in all of us. The sponsor probably points out that the newcomer has some assets which can be noted, along with his liabilities. This tends to clear away morbidity and encourage balance. As soon as he begins to be more objective, the newcomer can fearlessly, rather than fearfully, look at his own defects. There is no difference between a character defect and a shortcoming. Bill Wilson was asked why he chose different words in those 2 steps, and he said that he just didn't want to end the sentences with the same words. In the 12 and 12 on page 63, it states, this is the step that separates the men from the boys. Big Book, page 64. Our liquor was but a symptom, so we had to get down to causes and conditions. We have emphasized willingness as being indispensable. Are we now ready to let God remove from us all the things which we have admitted are objectionable? Can he now take them all, everyone? If we still cling to something we will not let go, we ask God to help us be willing. Big Book, page 76. A very few examples of character defects or shortcomings and their opposites are selfish and unselfish, giving and sharing, dishonest and honest, resentful, forgiving, afraid, fear or faith, arrogant, humble, egotistical, egoism, modest, cocky, mild, envy, grateful, sloth, hardworking or industrious, gluttony, sharing, impatient, patient, vengeful, loving, hurtful, kind, sarcastic, complimentary, intolerant, tolerant. And then we have a couple of links for character defects and their opposites, AA principles and the 7 deadly sins. And then we have another link for more extensive list of flaws and assets that you can access. In the 12 and 12 on page 65, it states, so step 6, we're entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of characters, is AA's way of stating the best possible attitude one can take in order to make a beginning on this lifetime job. This does not mean that we expect all our character defects to be lifted out of us as the drive to drink was. A few of them may be, but with most of them, we shall have to be content with patient improvement. The key words, entirely ready, underline the fact that we want to aim at the very best we know or can learn. Do you acknowledge that you have character defects that you need to work on? Yes or no?